get better. So thanks, Drew.
Yep. Thanks. So yeah, my name's Andrew Stewart. I'm, an account manager, sales representative under Charlie May's team. But um, I wanted to share some of the stuff that, we went through with as many people as I can. And like I said at the beginning, for those of you that just joined a little later, I'm open to any input. I'm relatively new to ANSYS, but I have a pretty good handle on things, and I just want to make this as open as possible because I have a lot to learn myself too. So this is by no means me trying to teach everyone what to do. If anything, I'm looking to learn as much as I can from you guys from this. So. Okay, so and if anybody wants to chime in at any time, go ahead and do it. So this is going to be basically a fundamental overview, and what this slide is going to talk about is, sometimes all it takes is 0.2 of a second to win a race, right? But what kind of work had to be done to get that first place victory, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And sometimes our customers want to be first to the market, or they want to be the best. They want to maybe follow suit and make a better product. So there's all kinds of different goals and objectives that our customers have, but it takes hard work to to reach those goals. So I think at least in my experience, the number one sales tip I can give for anyone in sales is, you don't want to sell people. I like to build a relationship with the person and look to help them and solve their problems, and make sure that our tools are the ones that are in their tool belts. So we need to introduce ourselves to as many people as we can, especially digitally, because how you can scale it. But the more hands you shake, the more money you're going to make. But obviously, once we build our reputation with them, we don't want to sell them. We want to help them, and be that trusted resource. So each person's different. There's no cookie cutter fit here. I just want to share this material with you guys and let you utilize it whichever way works best for you. So yeah, we gotta have an organized approach here, and you get points for style, but the fundamentals are only guidelines. We want you guys to use your personality and your skill sets, and adopt this fundamental process in your own way. We want to talk to people, not at them. We shouldn't have to trick a customer into buying from us. One of the things that I actually talked to Jeff, he's one of our global sales directors today, and one of his pieces of advice was you need to have 1,000 bad sales calls to get good at it. So get started. And I kind of found that to be funny, but relatively true, at least in my experience so far. Almost every sales call I'm on, I learned something, or I think about something I should have said, and now I'm in the calls I'm referencing previous experiences that I've had and asking the questions that I wish I would have asked on that first meeting or second meeting weeks and weeks and weeks ago. So keep that in mind. We always want to keep improving, but sometimes it just takes time and effort to get better. Yep. So quantitative actions lead to qualitative results. Anything else? Did anybody want to add anything to that at the beginning here?
That's good.
I like the monkey with the machine gun. I've done some reps that just spray and pray. There's really no strategy. So that was a great picture, man. Thanks for putting that in. I gotta laugh at that one.
Yeah, maybe that one's not customer facing, but if you got to pull it out, maybe you should. So there's obviously some different rep profiles. I don't want to get too far into the weeds when it comes to, you know, what profile are you, because, you know, we've all had that kind of training already. But you know, I'm definitely probably in the hard worker and relationship builder, but I think there's things I need to work on, you know, when it comes to managing results and paying attention to details. A lot of the times what I'll do is, you know, I try to take really detailed notes, especially if you have some kind of, you know, higher level C-suite person on the call. I try to take notes word for word what they're saying. You know, just yesterday I had a CFD engineering department, you know, director on a call with some other engineers, and he kind of chimed in at the very beginning of the meeting before he hopped off about what he was looking for out of ANSYS CFD tools. And I wanted to make sure that I specifically got what he wanted, because he's probably going to be the person that's going to be involved with the decision-making process. He might not necessarily be, you know, the end all be all when it comes to the decision, but he's definitely going to have a lot of weight when it comes to, you know, the tools and software that his team is using. So, you know, when I strategize about, you know, the next calls that we have, and, you know, eventually get that, you know, CEO or COO or whoever is going to sign off on the decision, I want to make sure that I bare minimum bring that up and make sure that, you know, we acknowledge what he said. So yeah, we've probably all heard of MEDDIC, but if you haven't, you know, we can definitely go over that at some point. But for now, you know, here's what it stands for. You know, we have our metrics, economic buyer, decision criteria, decision process, identify pain, champion, and compelling event. Is there anybody that hasn't heard of MEDDIC? Okay, perfect. So we're all pretty aware of that. Good. So yeah, we have our 3 pillars of commerce, right? We got relationship, solution, and credibility. You know, relationships are so important. I see our jobs as not only being sales prospectors and managers, but champion creators and champion allies. Asking the right questions can, you know, establish a mutual understanding between the potential customer or current one. And, you know, now everyone's working toward a common goal, which is the solution to their problems. You know, and a lot of the times what I found is pretty useful when it comes to establishing that champion is really finding out what their problem is and how you can help them, because then that's going to be in line with the economic buyer's decision to get the product or not. You know, but we also have to make sure that we have the solution for them. And, you know, if you can have all the pieces to the MEDDIC, but ultimately, you know, you have to have the solution that can be able to help them. And oftentimes, you know, I found where they say, hey, I need help with this. We get in a call and they end up saying that they need, you know, something completely different, or it's when you get into the details of their problem, it's not necessarily something that, you know, we can do, or it's a different product, or, you know, I had a customer looking at explosions, and, you know, we initially thought based on the description that they gave us that it was going to be something in the CFD fluent range, and now we're probably going to have to get into, you know, Autodyne and stuff like that. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're giving them the right solution. And then obviously you have to have the credibility, white papers, webinars, things like that to show them, hey, you know, we've done this type of analysis or something similar to it. Here's what their problem was. Here's the result that we got. You know, is this along the lines of something that you guys are looking for? So yeah, pre-call planning, metric, and paying questions are critical. If we can find $1 million problem and offer a solution to solve it, then the cost return will always be a net positive. And one of the ways to do that is to get the metrics from them about, hey, if you can solve this problem, or if you have this tool, how many more projects can you take on? What's the average price of your consulting for a project like this? How many more projects can you take on? All those different types of things. And sometimes even asking one or two of those can get you the answer that you need. We want to make sure we do the metric gathering as soon as possible, because it really aligns what you're trying to do with the customer, and it helps develop that champion for you, especially when if they can solve the problem, it probably is going to make them look good too. So I've had some calls with customers where it really seems like they've been tasked with finding a software or program or tool that will help them gain more business or do more solving, or have a broader capability to expand their company. And so if you can partner with something like that, that's going to be lucrative, I think. So and then a big thing too, we obviously open with that. We want to explore all kinds of pain that they have. And oftentimes, you might have objections. Price is obviously one of the biggest objections I think I come across. But there's all kinds of different objections, right? And then, when we're closing with that discovery meeting, we always want to make sure that we either, verbally say, hey, this is what we went over. This is what I understand. Is this correct? Best to get a meeting scheduled, right then and there if possible. And then, move on from there. I always send a follow-up email. I mean, it's not immediate, but I always like to email a letter of understanding. It just helps me personally with my record keeping, but I think those email chains, when they get to be 10, 15 messages long, it's always nice to have at least one in there that shows what you guys what we went over. So yeah, just to go over this a little bit more, it's always good to have a corporate deck on hand. If you guys need a copy of a corporate deck that shows the background of ANSYS and the acquisitions that we've had, the different products that are in across the different physics, and the names of them and what they can solve. I have one. I can share it with you guys, and then you can make it your own. It's always good to have something like that to pull up just in case a customer isn't 100% aware of what ANSYS is. I don't ever assume that. So it helps you build credibility just by sharing, hey, we've done all of this to build our PhD engineer team, and we have all these different products that we're trying to, encompass into our current customer solutions. And it just shows that ANSYS is always trying to get, better products, better tools, and, be a trusted resource for that customer. So, yeah, whenever we open on a meeting, we always want to make sure that, we introduce ourselves. Doing personal things is always good. You never know. You never know what the person, is interested in. So sometimes even, that you have the same favorite sports team, stuff like that. It doesn't seem like it's important, but making personal connections with people is going to make things a whole heck of a lot easier. You always want to go over the agenda of the meeting. So, figure out, what the goals are, what you're going to talk about. Make sure that, if they're coming to the meeting with expectations, that there's a general understanding of what that is. And then, you can get right into it with things like, what are you doing for testing, and try to figure out, what your metrics are going to be, what the problems are, what the pain points are. You never want to go into a meeting without some kind of pre-call planner in place where you have some questions set up. If I get an hour meeting with a customer, I always try to have backup discovery questions about, any products that I think they might use, just because I want to utilize that entire hour. So, after the call kind of comes to a close, you want to check for that agreement and, determine if a call even should be scheduled. And, we always have engineers that are willing to help us out, show demos and stuff like that. So utilize your engineering teams. It's probably best to have an engineer on your discovery call anyway. At least that's my experience. So anytime you can get someone scheduled, that's going to be pretty helpful as well. So.
Hey, Drew, I wanted to reiterate on the corporate demo. I don't know if you guys are doing this on every one, but back before there was momentum and we had a territory team, we were doing so many new logo meetings that we had to, as part of our job, like have the corporate story completely memorized. It's only about, I don't know, I can't remember, like 15 slides or so, but it's basically you as a sales guy, tell your AE, hey, before we go into this meeting, and this is typically a discovery call with an AE, right? That might be discovery call with some of the potential users. And then you go back and you come up with a plan about what the solution will be or whatever else. And the next meeting, this is when you're going to be more of a formal setting to propose the solution with the AE and a bigger crowd, pulling as high level people as you can. But, let your AE know, hey, in the first 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to give the corporate story. I'm going to introduce ANSYS. And I've seen a lot of reps get lazy and just kind of show up with the AE and don't even do that. They just sit there quiet the whole time, and they leave a lot of dollars on the table, because a lot of times, especially when you hit that slide where it shows all the applications that ANSYS can hit across the org, thermal, electric, all this stuff, people in the room are like, oh, we didn't know you could do that. Oh, you can do that? Oh my God, you should talk to so-and-so. So, I mean, it just opens up like other avenues to just knock down extra money in these accounts. And don't be lazy and skip the corporate story. Do it every single time.
Do you have a copy of that, Jason? You can send everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, I can. I customize them based on who I'm talking to a little bit, but for the most part, it's the same thing over and over. I did one with Alec. He was pretty impressed. He's like, dude, it's like you've done this 100 times. I'm like, I have done this 100 times. But yeah, I can show you. I can share that with you.
Yep. Yeah, actually, Jason, the one you sent us when you first came on was pretty similar to I think the ones that Alec and I had. So it's definitely something good to have.
It stayed the same, and like, man, the talk track's about the same, and I even like to throw a metric sometimes early in the slide deck. That way, if you have a higher level management guy, like a VP or something, they don't care about the clicks, but they see that metric slide and they're like, this is why we're here. This is why we're talking about simulation, because this can save you millions of dollars. This is why we're doing this.
Yep. It gives you instant credibility to some degree, so. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of slides in this deck, but I'll definitely send this out so that you guys can read through it. But we want to use open and closed questions to uncover pain. There's all kinds of different questions you can ask, but you obviously want to keep them in line with what you're trying to figure out during that meeting. And even a discovery call, I mean, most of the time, let's face it, we get like a 1-sentence or 2-sentence lead. And they're looking for, I'd like a quote on HFSS. Well, there's a lot of different things HFSS can do, And, half an hour or 60 minutes probably isn't enough time to go through all the capabilities of something like that. So, you really want to have a bunch of, various questions to have depending on where it goes. And I even try to determine that before I actually get on the phone with them if I can, whether that be an email, or, LinkedIn or whatever it may be, to try to just kind of narrow it down and say, hey, I want to get on the phone with you guys with an engineer, but can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing, so that I can, have some stuff prepared, and even sending them over a white paper or webinar, or, a PowerPoint on that particular aspect. And I've even sent ANSYS Advantage articles to them, just because that's a perfect resource to have a story, that has a problem, and, what they did to solve that problem, what tool they used. It's they're normally pretty quick reads, and sometimes it's all the difference when it comes to, whether they get on the phone with you. So what else do we got here? So yeah, I mean, that kind of goes along with that third bullet, where, a lot of it is improv and not stand up. You just have to be kind of confident in yourself to be that liaison between the engineer and, the customer, to keep the conversation going, because there's only so much, an engineer is going to be able to, talk and discuss about without, you having the mining questions that will bring up the real pain points that they're having. If they start talking about radio frequency and antennas, well, what's that problem costing you right now? Or, how long are you going to be out of the marketplace if you don't get this antenna, problem figured out? So I always like asking open-ended questions like that, because, people love to talk about themselves and their problems, and it really seems to get them going. And then you really get into the nitty-gritty of what they're looking for. So it also stops you from selling at them, and it immediately, puts you on their side, where you want to help them solve their problem as much as they do. So yep, we have the challenger sale. We have to teach them. There's compelling case studies and optimization stories that we can tell them. The objective obviously is to lead to a solution versus, lead with a solution. We want to tailor the message to the stakeholder, what their role and function is. It just depends. Every company is different. Every structure is different. Sometimes we'll have, small consulting firms that, maybe it's a one-man shop, maybe it's a 2 or 3 person shop. Even the shops that their company, other companies that have, large departments, there's still maybe a particular person that you want to focus on that's going to be able to get you the answers and get you the metrics that you want. But, like I said, every situation is different. Sometimes you have to work bottom up. So it's always best to take control, broaden that perspective. And, we want to focus on, what their problems are, and not necessarily what the price package options are, until we want to get to that. Now, granted, I think a big thing that I run into is, what's it going to cost me? What's the pricing on this? And, I wouldn't call it being sleazy, but a big thing that I try to do is I try to always take price out of the conversation, especially at the beginning. I try to vet the actual opportunity and the budget that they have, but I also want to figure out what the problem is costing them first, because then I can tailor my, strategy to them based on what that pain point cost is. And then, it makes selling the cost of the software a lot easier. And really anything you're selling, whether it's, software or hardware or whatever it may be, whatever you're selling, it's all about what your customer sees the value in it, right? So if you can create value more than the cost, then you're going to sell it every single time. So that's really what we're trying to focus on here. So yep, we got to overcome those objections that come up. We have a drawback. The contact is unhappy with a factor that can't be changed. So, we want to clarify that concern, refocus on the overall perspective, outweigh with confirmed benefits, anticipated outcome, and then always, we want to confirm that agreement. Sometimes you have to, fight credibility issues. So maybe the contact is skeptical, and that's where that corporate deck would come in. That's where those white papers, ANSYS Advantage articles, our acquisitions, are even like the updates that we have to the software can sometimes be a good article to send out, because it'll show, hey, we saw that this was causing issues, and this is what we did to 2021 R2 to make it happen, to make it better. So we'll have clarification. Maybe the contact doesn't understand the benefit. Sometimes it's really hard to sell, hey, this can do this, but if there's no value associated to it, then it's not going to mean anything to them. And so we all know that we sell pretty expensive stuff, but it has, it's very powerful stuff. So, to be able to clarify, hey, this is going to be the tools that you're going to get, and this is what you can do with it, and this is how it's going to change the overall landscape of what you do. That's got to be clarified as much as possible. And then sometimes you have that stalemate where, the contact might be happy with their current situation. They already have tools in place. I mean, how many times do people hear, hey, I checked in with, the mechanical team, they're happy with what they have? Has everyone heard that before?
All the time.
All the time, right? We don't need any more. We don't need any tools, right? We're good.
Happy with
SolidWorks. So, that's something that I encounter too, and I kind of take that as a fun challenge, because most of the time the person that is sharing that with you might not even be on that team, and so they probably, sent them an email or, popped their head into the office and said, hey, do you guys want to talk to ANSYS? And they're busy working on something else and they don't want to be bothered. I mean, how many times are people like, oh yeah, that sounds great, like let's do that. They're busy doing other stuff. And so I always like that challenge, because that's a hard sell. And but ultimately, it can be like, you can ask them all kinds of different open-ended questions then, like, well, what do you use? How many people are using it? Or sometimes I'll even say, what do you like about it, and what don't you like about it? And or give me a what if dream situation. If you could do this, what would happen? And almost 9 times out of 10 they have some kind of what if, fantasy. If I could do this, then that would mean this for me. And a lot of the times that, like, what if is typically within the realm of an ANSYS tool. And so that's always a good one for me, because the ANSYS tools really can accomplish those what ifs. And you just never know. You figure out what that what if is, you get a white paper that shows that it did it, and then now you're talking to the mechanical team. So that's always a fun one for me, is stalemate. So yep, finally we're gonna close. What's the objective? Did we hit it? Did we do we want to move forward? Do we want to maybe, investigate something else? And then hopefully, with your metric questions and your, all the things that we talked about, hopefully you found some pain, and what the benefit would be if you change that pain. What would the outcome for that department or company, what would that be? And yeah, here's a quote: people love change but hate being changed. So that mechanical team that has their software that's already working on that project, and they've been working on it for weeks or months or whatever, they're not going to want to just completely stop and start something new. And one thing I was talking with Brian here about was, if we all use Teams, right? And if one day, Zoom came along and was like, hey, do you guys want to use Zoom? We'd probably be like, well, we're on Teams. We're pretty happy with Teams. We don't really need to switch. But sometimes people will give them a chance and try it, or there would have to be a real benefit to switching to Zoom over Teams, right? So people love change in some cases, but they don't really want to go ahead and switch just for the sake of being switched. There's got to be some kind of benefit or value in there. We always want to clearly articulate the next step. I think we've kind of harped on this a bit already, but we want to make sure, even if there's 5 minutes left in the meeting, if your engineers are really getting onto something good, I always jump in and say, hey guys, we got 5 minutes left. If we can go longer, we can go longer. But if we got a hard stop, then let's get something on the schedule here right now, and we can kind of continue this. We talked about this. You guys like the capabilities of this tool. Let me get some things together, and then we'll talk about it, next week at the same time, or whatever it may be. And really, really get specific. We don't want anything to be vague. I see us as salespeople really orchestrating the entire process between our engineers and whoever we're talking to, whether that be an engineer or a decision maker. It's the better you can get at orchestrating these things, the more deals you're going to close. So we always want to make sure that we're specific and clear about where we're at and where we're going to take the next steps. So one big thing too, is once that next step is proposed and you have a meeting set, other than maybe sending that letter of understanding or a resource that you were planning on doing it, you don't want to spam them with all kinds of different stuff. You want to make sure that if you're getting meetings and they're going places and you're having good discussions. Again, nobody likes being sold to, so you want to keep it at that good relationship and good contacts that you're making, rather than sending them something every day or every other day, especially if you have a meeting set up. So just keep that in mind. So we'll just go through these personality types really, really quick. I know some of us have already done some training like this, but it's always good, I think, to go over the different personality types that you might encounter. I try to do it within the first couple minutes of what that person's like, whether they want to, be spoken to directly, or whether they're going to look for a relationship out of you. And I feel like you can decipher that pretty quick. And so everyone you might tell a customer, oh well, I've done something like what your company does before. They might say, well, we're kind of special. We do this, what we do is different. So, it's always important to make sure that you make your customer feel special, because that's definitely what they're going to feel like. So So yeah, we got the major 4 personality types, like, let's do it now. Let's do it together. Let's do it in a caring way. And maybe let's do it right. We got some Simpsons here for you. So we have our fiery red type. They're going to be competitive, strong-willed, task-focused, goal-oriented. They don't want to, dilly-dally or focus on feelings. They just want to be direct and to the point, focus on the results and objectives. And, we want to be confident and assertive. So this is maybe a time you bring up, make sure there's an understanding about who ANSYS is, bring out that corporate deck, build some credibility, and then get straight to the point on what your discovery questions are, making sure that, at the end you have a goal, that's understood between you and them. We have like a cool blue, they're cautious, analytical, but they like things to be precise. They might seem kind of introverted. So, what we do want to do is be well prepared and thorough. We want to definitely put things in writing, before, after, during, and then, they're going to be very detail oriented. So they're going to consider all the details that, all the different things that come in the packages, and, what kind of things that you're going to include in the deal. And so we want to make sure that we're clear on all the details, but we don't want to be, over emotional. Don't exaggerate things, or act like you're careless or casual, which I don't think anybody really is when we're talking about selling ANSYS, but just something to keep in mind. We have our sunshine yellow, right? The sociable person. They're enthusiastic. They're definitely extroverted. They focus on feelings. They want to be friendly, or we want to be friendly and sociable. But we don't want to bore them with details, or, they don't like working alone. So they're probably, going to bring somebody on the call with them. So even if they don't, they might mention, hey, I'm going to go back to this person and talk to them. So that's something to keep in mind with the sociable person. Then we have this earth green. They're going to be caring, encouraging, empathetic, still introverted when focused on feelings, but we want to be patient and supportive with them, maybe slow down, work at their pace. Make sure you ask them for their opinion. Hey, what are your thoughts on this? How's this feeling? Are we going down the right track with this? What are your reservations so far? Things like that. Sometimes those questions don't land, and, with this person, they definitely will. So they want to, make sure that they're being taken care of. So yeah, getting into, how we're going to make those, the contacts with the customers. 50% of the buying process is complete before willing to engage with a live salesperson. Excuse me. So, somebody that's on the phone with you is already willing to talk to you. Purchase decisions remain complex with multiple decision makers, increasing the sales cycle by 22% over the past 5 years. So it's definitely, buying behavior is there's lots of data on buying behavior. You just want to make sure you're aware of it. So, we want to make sure we're reaching the right contacts. Typically at the very top, there's 1 or 2 when we're talking about COO, CTO, CEO, things like that. They're focused on the why. We have our directors and managers, maybe 2 to 3 contacts. They're focused on what. And then, we have our individual contributors, engineers, and they're focused on the how, and you can see the ANSYS tools there. So that's what they're going to be focused on. So yeah, contact. We'll definitely we'll have some more of these. We have a pretty good contact strategy, but for now we'll just go through this deck. Email. when it's feasible, include several people for best results. Oftentimes I'll do a template that has either a webinar on it or, a use case. I always like to include some kind of relevant picture, especially when it's linked to or when it's connected to an actual web link. I actually got on a call with a director of technology with a printed circuit board tester, just because I had a picture of a printed circuit board on the email. He saw the email and said, that looked interesting to me, so I wanted to give you a call. So, while it might not hit every time, but it's better than just the typical spam text, email that you guys might be sending out. So, big thing too is repetition. 57% of reps stop after the first email. So, we'll go through what we call a touch point strategy, especially within the Salesforce tool. There's a really easy way to track what you're doing and automate what you're doing. As salespeople, we have to put time to prospecting, but if you can automate that and make it, less time, then you're going to be able to focus on, other things, because you'll have more time, because you're doing things more efficiently. So, obviously the subject line, we have some things that, some data that shows, that silly subject lines sometimes have the most click rates. I've done things where I've even, during that, when I got that director of technology on a call, I actually just put, ANSYS at Summit with a question mark, so sometimes something as simple as that intrigues people. If you're gonna go on the email campaigns, you got to set yourself apart. So yeah, social media. One thing that I shared with some of the guys earlier is I always connect with people on LinkedIn. I think it adds a little bit of a personal contact whenever, or personal touch whenever it comes to, prospecting and things like that. So, the first thing people do when they get a connection, or at least when I do, is I go to their profile and I take a look at them. And so now, you're not just an email. There's a name or a face to the name. And then one of the things I do immediately once they connect with me, or whenever I send that connection, is, again, let's say it's an HFSS customer. I'll go on to one of our apps or just the ANSYS page and find an article or posting that is in regards to HFSS, and I'll share that. That way, when they do end up accepting my connection, and then they go to my profile to check it out, they're immediately going to see something about HFSS and maybe click on it. So that's a little tactic that I like to do. Let's face it, social media is huge these days. 78% of reps using social media outsell their peers. So, LinkedIn is one of those things, especially LinkedIn Navigator is one of those tools that's good to have in your tool belt, especially, if you have some kind of connection to somebody in that company that's already dealt with somebody either at ANSYS or at your channel or whatever. A soft or a warm intro is always better than a cold one. So activity is huge. What's the average number of dials per day per rep? We're 40 to 59. So it's quantity over quality, but that doesn't mean we want to sacrifice quality altogether. This chart just shows, the preferred contact method over the likelihood to respond. So we have email here at the highest, right? So that's how they want to be contacted, and that's how they're going to respond. But also, their phone. So we want to make sure that those are our two big ones. But we always want to make sure that we're utilizing the social media as well. So yep, this is kind of right around the same thing. Likelihood of executives responding at work, email, phone, want to focus on that, especially when you're doing a top-down strategy. So one big thing to remember is the best times to prospect. Early morning and late in the day are some of the best times for dials. And I believe Wednesday and Thursdays are going to be some of the best days to prospect as well. If you're making early morning or mid morning calls on a Monday, people are going to be busy getting into their week. So little things like that are always good to keep in mind when you're putting together your prospecting strategy. Yep. Early in the morning or later in the afternoon. There's that best day of the week to make contact is Wednesday and Thursday. Yep, this is just going to be our opportunity scale, so sometimes it's better to to focus on the product to close the deal. It's a good way to lose a deal is when everything's focused on price, especially when some of these customers have tight budgets. Just go through these, put these all up on there. And I think a big thing that I've kind of learned too, and if anybody wants to chime in, go ahead. But I've kind of realized that I'll never have the technical knowledge of an engineer, and even after years and years and years of being in the company, there's a lot of people that still have things to learn. And so while having a good technical knowledge of different things is good, I think it's important to have those questions maybe per product rather than actually knowing what kind of if you have the technical knowledge, great, but I think it's good to have the questions that will bring up the technical knowledge so that the engineers can do their discussions. Does anybody agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I stay as far away from the technical stuff as possible, man.
Yeah.
Just stay in your lane, and you don't want to get dragged into it because you're just going to end up looking not great.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yep, agreed.
If you can have some technical knowledge, great.
You lose credibility too. And as a sales guy, the only currency you really have is your credibility. And if you lose your credibility with the customer, you're pretty shot. I mean, you killed yourself.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. Definitely know your lane, stay in your lane. If you can answer some questions quick, on a cold call or even like a warmer call, that's good. But ultimately, we want the engineer support because they're going to really get into the discussions that we want to have happen. That way, while you're listening, you figure out what their pain points are. You attach a metric to it. You figure out who needs to make the decision, what their decision process is, and then you have all your check boxes checked, and you can move on from there. Yep. So we want to make sure we select the right metric to emphasize. Depending on the size of the impacted audience and the complexity, sometimes it's going to be based on productivity, or it's going to be cost, integrated products, or the capabilities, right? So if we have a broad impacted audience, it's probably going to be things like productivity. So these are some pretty detailed slides here. I'm just gonna let you guys read through those. There's a lot of different questions on here to that we can ask, like solver. What are you doing for testing now? There's all kinds of good stuff in here that you guys can use. So yeah, I mean, I'll kind of open up the floor if anybody has anything they want to add, any tips, advice. I mean, I'm open to it. You know, I'll just let the floor open.
Hey Andrew, do me a favor. Go back to that metric slide about 2 slides ago. That's an interesting concept. I've never come across that before in terms of, yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, if it's going to be a limited, you know, impacted audience, maybe, you know, a specific engineer in a specific department, and they, you know, have a complex problem and they're an expert in their field, they're going to be focused on capabilities, right? And you can kind of make up all kinds of different scenarios based on this chart, but it's definitely something good to keep in mind when it comes to even the discovery questions that you're going to ask. You know, if you're in this kind of realm with, you know, maybe a medium audience and they have some expertise, they're going to know the products that are out there and the tools that are out there already, but they're going to be focused on the cost, right? Because ultimately they have to justify the cost. So for them, I would say the best thing you can do is focus on the value of the tool and figure out, you know, what problems, what the cost related to each problem that they're having, you know, and then what that means for the future, and align yourself with their goals. And then now, you know, the cost is still going to be a net positive based on the value that they get out of it and the return on investment. So.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, guys. I mean, I appreciate you guys coming on. That's really all I had for this one. I hope to do a couple more sessions like this. You know, we have a ton of resources that we've gone through. This is just one little chapter of the Charlie May book, but I wanted to make sure that that I shared it with you guys, and any feedback, you know, either now or afterward that you want to send me, I'd appreciate it. So.
No problem, man. Thank you.
No, really nice job, Andrew. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yes, thanks for taking the time and
Yep.
good info.
Hey guys, too.